please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a special guest that's going to lead it off. Madam, after you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Outstanding. All right, welcome everyone. Call the meeting to order. Looks like the March, very snowy, 2026 meeting of the Greencastle School Board. All right, starting off, Mr. Gimme, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
I have no adjustments to the agenda this month.
All right, moving on to recognitions.
Mr. Roberts?
All right, moving on to recognitions.
Well, good evening. Tonight, I'd like to recognize Liam Stiers-Fleshman as a great example of what it means to be a respectful student. Liam consistently demonstrates respect in the way that he interacts with both adults and his classmates. He waits his turn, listens carefully, and he's always willing to lend a helping hand when someone needs it. He's polite, kind, and thoughtful in his words and actions. What stands out most about Liam is that he's someone that we can rely on. He's honest, considerate, and works to do the right thing even when no one is watching. So we're very proud of Liam and thankful for the example he sets for others. Congratulations.
Got the whole crew. They don't mess around.
Good evening. It is my honor to share with you that Sebastian has been selected as our Student of the Month from Deer Meadow. Sebastian is a role model student who is extremely respectful to his peers and his teachers. I can always count on him for a polite word, kind gesture, and a sweet smile. He is very helpful and sincere. His teacher always looks forward to hearing of his future and the things that he will do. We are so proud of you, Sebastian.
It's feedback from the clapping.
Another whole crew.
It's coming right here. It's in the speaker. It's feedback. It's not clapping. It's weird.
Hello, I'd like to introduce the TZ Student of the Month for this month for respect as Trip Fluid. Trip is in Ms. Stark's class, and so I'm going to just read a little bit about why he was nominated. Ms. Stark has chosen Trip for this character trait of respect because he is always kind to others, whether it be adults or fellow classmates. Trip has shown that he takes the time to pay attention to others and always be a friend. And I will add that Trip's name came up multiple times from some of our other staff members as being highly concerned. So congratulations.
Trip is also like a 7-time national champ dirt bike rider too.
And a good running back.
Yeah.
I like it all.
And a good running back.
I'm going to introduce Mylan Schwipps as our GMS Student of the Month for Respect. And all of our teachers, he came up first. Like, they were like, Mylan every single time. Respect is a huge trait that we take a lot of pride in. And he's a great example of respect in our building at all times, even when others are not looking. So that's always key. But Mrs. Munoz-Thede wanted to say some words about it.
Right. So I've had the privilege of being Mylan's band teacher for 3 years now. As much as I know he wants to have fun every day, he knows how important it is to be respectful of his peers and his school. Mylan is kind and lighthearted with his classmates in school. Each day, Mylan checks in with students in his percussion section and goes out of his way to be helpful and kind. well beyond my expectations. I'm very proud of Milan and how he respects his peers, teachers, and GMS as a whole, while still having a lot of fun. So we're really proud of you, Milan.
Got a repeater going on somewhere.
So for the high school student of the month, we have Stormy Purdue, and Stormy was nominated by Miss Berry. Miss Berry said that she's had the privilege of teaching Stormy Purdue as an 8th grader. She stood out in the classroom because she was attentive and respectful to others. She had hoped that she would teach her as a freshman in French 1 at GHS, but her schedule didn't allow it. She was glad that she had decided to take French 1 class her sophomore year. She continued her French studies this year as a junior in French 2, and she can always rely on Stormy to be kind to others. She's always genuinely concerned with others and always respectful to all. Stormy Purdue.
And may I add a very fine Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely.
I like it. Okay. Is that all we have? I like it. Moving on to public comments. Looks like I have no one who's requested for any public comments this evening. Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda, which compiles of the meeting minutes, the regular board meeting, February 23rd, 2026, the allowance of claims, financial report, personnel reports, part 1 and 2. Mrs. Roman.
Yes, hello everyone. We'll start out with some payrolls for the month of February in your packet. The first one was dated February 13th, 2026, total payroll of $451,562.61. And as usual, we always talk about some payroll taxes and retirement with payrolls. And the same would be true for that February 13th payroll. Total was $129,356.46. And then we had a second regular payroll in February dated the 27th. Total payroll $509,268.26. Payroll and retirement on that payroll was $142,803.54. We're going to move into some prepays for the month of February. As you look through the prepays, did anyone have any specific questions about? Okay. Total prepays for the month of February was $343,152.66. And then earlier in the month of February, you authorized me to go ahead and do a last minute for last minute claims that came in February after the board meeting because of my vacation. We had dated them a little earlier in the month. As you look through that list, did anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Total for the last minute dated February 26, 2026, $180,985.33. And then we've got a list of claims as stated today, March 16th, 2026. There's nothing unusual on this list, but did anyone see anything that you would like to ask a question about? No? Okay. Total dated today, March 16th, 2026, claims $450,643.09. We'll go ahead and move on to the fund report if you're ready. Our very first line is Fund 101. That would be Education Fund. Our balance, the end of February 2026, $3,446,851.43. We'll go ahead and buzz down a couple of lines to Fund 300 to Operations. You'll see that balance at the end of February was $929,786.14. And pending any other questions, I'd like you to go ahead and go to the next page. That would be in your finance packet, F25. You're going to go to the very bottom on the last column. You'll see the balance in all funds at the end of February 2026, $9,142,710.92. Did anyone have any questions about any fund balances? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to that bank to fund balance. And for us to balance each month, we want our banks to be in balance with all of our funds. And you can see there that we are balanced to the penny. We're all doing the right thing. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the fund transfer report. You'll see you authorized me to move money back and forth to banks to pay bills timely out of certain accounts. So you'll see that we did have a transfer there. And then we also have the education to ops transfer. And then we're back on track with that 8,400 to 800 transfer every month. Did anyone have any questions about any of those? Okay, we'll go ahead and buzz on to the bonds. Bond 2021, I've got a note there for you. I'm going to stop reporting on this bond because there's really nothing substantial that we're going to be paying out of there. We'll continue to make interest and maybe lose some money depending on the markets in there, but nothing substantial. So we'll probably, if you're okay with it, we'll just go ahead and eliminate that from our reports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But we'll go ahead and keep on bond 2022 because as we've talked about, we do have that encumbered to pay any retainage left on some projects. And right now you can see that that balance in that bond as of February 28th was 151, 103.50. And then we'll go ahead and move on finally to the GEO 724. The very last page is F34 in your finance packet. In the last couple of months, I've told you that Mr. Gibney had some plans for some resurfacing over the summer. We're probably going to be using it, for that. That was, tentatively what we were looking at. We had some last minute billing that came in from signage very early on from the high school project that we went ahead and we paid out of here. You're going to see that expenditure next month. I did a prepay on it in March. So you'll see that in there. So it's going to be off just a little bit. So as of right now, with those encumbrances for those prepays that I did for signage, and then it was the retainage for the middle school flooring project of $4,500. You'll see those next month. So we've got about almost $114,000 left in there that we will then use for those projects of the resurfacing that Mr. Gibney spoke of. So, yeah, I guess that's all we have there. And I just have a very, very detailed note about everything I just said. So you can read that in there if you'd like. And then pending any questions, I'd like to submit for approval.
any questions?
No.
No. All right, there's no questions. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None will pass. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to reports. Mrs. McPherson.
Yes. Mrs. Robinson, do you have our slideshow? Thank you. Early on in the year, I introduced and shared information about the first and second draft of the accountability model that the IDOE has been working on. As of March 4th, they have finalized it. They voted to approve it. So now we are in that mode of making sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to ensure that we have all of the points that we need. So I'm going to go through this and mainly focus on the changes between the second draft and the final draft. You go ahead, Steve. Thank you. So it was approved March 4th. It aligns with our GPS dashboard and the new diploma requirements. Those are the two main focuses. Go ahead. So for grade 3, this is when it starts. It looks at iLearn, both English and math, and then our students are able to earn success indicators through iRead and some other things that they are able to do. So next slide. So with our iLearn, ELA, and math, they get a baseline of points. And then based on that, they look at our other success indicators. So we have the iRead 3 passing score. If they did not pass in second grade, but they passed in third grade, they could get points that way. Regular school attendance. And then a new one that was added was for our EL students, so our English learner students. If they are labeled as newcomers, where they've only been in the country for 2 years or less, that LEDA score can take the place of the iRead score for them. So they are still able to show progress with that. Any questions on third grade? All right. Fourth through sixth grade, it's pretty much the same. Go ahead. The only addition they had was the excellence in academic progress. So this is for our students who in the preceding year, so if you are a third grader, scored in the below or approaching proficiency rate on iLearn. And then the following year as a fourth grader, you got up to proficient. So you can earn a excellence in academic progress indicator. And then all the rest of those were in the second draft. Any questions on those? All right, 7th and 8th grade. Again, iLearn is the mastery
Go ahead. Two big changes for this one. They have the excellence in academic progress, like we had before. One of the big things that people were giving some pushback and feedback to the state about was in the second draft, they had high school credit classes in 7th grade. A lot of educators don't feel that that is appropriate for all 7th graders. And so to try to push that on the whole group, it just didn't sit well with a lot of us. So we gave feedback to that. So they changed that to in 7th grade, they can earn a success indicator by completing a graduation plan. This is typically done in 8th grade before high school, but we're going to push it down to 7th grade, do some career and college exploration in 7th grade, and have them start working on that plan for high school. And then in 8th grade, that's where their high school credit will be a success indicator. We may have some outlining students who take the high school credit in 7th grade. We've had some students in math who maybe took algebra in 7th grade. That will go on to their 8th grade calculation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on 7th and 8th grade? All right. For high school, their academic mastery is basically being on track. Are they earning the credits that they need to be on track in order to graduate on time? So they are needing to earn 10 or plus high school credits, 2 in math, 2 in English, 2 in science, social studies, or foreign language, and then their electives. And then also those success indicators. There were no additional success indicators added for this grade level span. They were all the same as during their second draft. Any questions on these? All right, 11th through 12th grade, that's where it gets fun. So their key outcome is the diploma. What kind of diploma do they earn? Did they earn a diploma? But then they also added the graduation rates of the cohort and then also the SAT proficiency of the cohort. So they added those 2 layers into it. Go ahead. So because they pulled the SAT out on its own, they added in ACT and then the CLT, which is the classic learning test. So if a student takes that outside of school, they can give those results to their guidance counselor, and then those can count as a success indicator. They also added proficiency on the U.S. government ECA. This is something that has been optional to schools for many, many years. Not a lot of schools do it because most U.S. classes take a push, so they're U.S. AP history class. So this is something that the high school team and I will be looking at to potentially give to them this spring to get some success indicators for those students. Questions on those 3?
So the ASVAB's removed completely too?
It has been.
That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Any other questions? So a little bit more about, go ahead, Stacey, how they're calculating it. So for grades 3 through 8, their I learned and then all their indicators are together as 100 points. For 11 and 12, those indicators are only worth 80%. So their diploma and then the indicators are 80% of that cohort score. 10% then will go from the grad rate, and then 10% from that cohort's SAT proficiency average. So that's where it's a little bit different to calculate that for the 11 and 12. They wanted to give some meat to the graduation rate and the SAT proficiency.
Not that you can do anything about it, but if the state's pushing higher education, employment, and or enlistment, taking away the ASVAB is absolutely ridiculous. As a guy that served 22 years and retired from the military, I think that's absurd, that's not somehow taken into consideration and being pushed. Again, nothing that we can do about it, but still absurd.
No, I agree with you. Any questions on that? All right. For our students who take the IM, so this is the alternate assessment. This is the 1% of our student population. There was not really anywhere in the former drafts that addressed how those students can contribute to points, because if every student matters, those students matter as well. So in place of any assessment, the IM will be that replacement. So if they score an approaching proficiency, they earn 75 points out of 100. If they earn proficient, they earn 100 points because some of those students are not able to earn those success indicators due to different things. Any questions on that? All right. Our primary schools, because we have two separate K-2 buildings, they are termed feeder schools. So they feed into TZ. So their grade, their individual school grades will be based on our third grade cohort scores, those who were with us in K-2 for 162 days the previous year. All right. So this year we've really been preparing and meeting as a whole building level admin. Our guidance groups have been meeting to make sure that we're ready for this. We weren't really sure what those different things were going to be, but we wanted to make sure that we had things in place. So we've been focusing on our K-12 attendance all year long. Our elementaries have really been working on their intentionality during WIN to help our students with those deficit skills. 7th grade, our high school guidance team has already completed a 7th grade grad plan for them. And so when in the spring, like mid-April, mid to late April, they're going to work with those 7th graders on that to get that done. We already have high school credit courses in 8th grade. Once a student goes into high school, they are asked to identify 2 different diploma seals to work toward. That way we know that what they want to do in freshman year is different a lot of the times than junior year. That way they're covered and they don't lose any time of having to kind of detour off of their path because they want a new path. Our high school PLCs have been working on identifying student credit accrual, making sure our students are on track to graduate on time. This year was the first year we administered the PSAT 8, 9, and 8th grade. So they'll be taking it in 8th grade, 9th, 10th, and then 11th to help prepare them for that SAT in 11th grade, but also give us that longitudinal data to track their growth over time. And then as a high school, we are also looking at increasing our student opportunities for that work placement. So we have had a lot of things in place, and now we know the rules of the game. We are ready to go.
I think the PSAT is whatever, 8, 9, and 10. I think it's, you can say it, but I don't know that a test is as good as perhaps looking at like an etymology and vocabulary class in the district as well, which I know we don't have. So there's an opportunity. Do we have etymology? Not Latin, but actual etymology where they're just increasing it. But, and again, it's unelected, but I think that would go a long way as well.
What is our attendance by school?
Well,
We can get that.
we can get that for you. I don't know
I mean,
off the
just out
top
of
of my head.
curiosity.
Our school, especially our APs at TZ middle school and high school, have really been focusing on attendance. They've been giving updates. They run a report every week to identify each student's individual attendance, but I can get that for you.
And then once they get to middle school and high school, when we may have field trips that are outside the scope of the whole day, does that count against them in attendance? No.
Yeah. Any questions?
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to Mr. Gibbon.
Yeah, I just have a few items this month. Drove down First of Julian this past weekend. You can once again see our lots were full with choir performances and hosting the boys basketball regional. So continuing to showcase and highlight our facilities, and that involves our people and our staff putting on those events. We appreciate that because that takes a lot of work. It's hard to believe that spring sports began this week officially, and we have snow on the ground. But thankfully, by this weekend, all of that will be gone. We'll be at 70 degrees. We are in the process of receiving bids. I believe we actually have a pre-bid meeting tomorrow for both Deer Meadow and I call it McAnally, but it encompasses McAnally Parker Auditorium, essentially the old white roof that had been coated. So looking forward to seeing some pricing on that. We are preparing for spring break next week. And with that being said, we have some staff members and some students traveling internationally our middle schoolers taking their trip to Italy, and then obviously our high school students, Austria, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. So we wish them, safe travels with everything going on in the world, and just hopefully they have a really fine experience over there. Because I could only imagine being a middle schooler or high schooler and getting to travel to some of those awesome places. So definitely exciting for them. And then obviously March 6th was the end of our third 9 weeks. So we're already full speed ahead into the fourth 9 weeks. It'll go really quick here, but we know that it's going to be busy with just a lot of events, musicals, concerts, athletic events. Certainly, our top 10% dinner that's in April. So just a lot of busy things, but it's definitely a fun time of year to celebrate alongside our staff and kids and recognize their accomplishments. So just wanted to share a few items with you this month.
A lot of good things going on. Okay, moving on to old business. It looks like we have none. Moving on to new business. The next item on the agenda involves the administration's recommendation to cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr. I'm going to turn this item over to Board Counsel to guide the board through this item.
Thank you. Members of the board, as you are aware, the administration has made a recommendation that the board cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr. Before moving the board through this process, the final step, I want to explain for the benefit of our audience, whether they're live stream or in person, who may be unfamiliar with this process, how this process works. It is a legal process. It typically starts in Indiana with a recommendation that comes from the principal that they've made a preliminary determination to cancel the teaching contract. There's a written notice that goes out to the teacher from the principal that states the reasons for why the teacher is being recommended for contract cancellation, and also advises the teacher of what their due process rights are under the law. From there, the teacher can move to the next step in the process, if the teacher chooses, and make a request to have a private conference with the superintendent. If that occurs, then the superintendent meets with the teacher to give the teacher an opportunity to tell the teacher's side of things and how the teacher would like to see the matter resolved. The superintendent then takes that information that the teacher provides under consideration and then ultimately is required by the law to make a recommendation to the board. The teacher is permitted to ask for a final private conference with the board. Before then, the board has to make a decision under the statute. And so now you all know what that process looks like. But in that process, it looks more or less like an informal hearing, where both the administration as well as the teacher are permitted to present evidence to the board, and the board then ultimately considers that evidence. The board is permitted under Indiana law to meet in executive session to consider all evidence that's been submitted before ultimately then you have to come to a public meeting to make a decision in the matter. So it is a process for sure. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not something that happens lightly. And I just wanted to give an overview of that process so that our audience understands generally what that looks like. So in this case that's currently pending before the board, Mrs. Carr, in accordance with Indiana law, did timely request a private conference with Mr. Givney as well as a private conference with the school board. And as you all know, you held a private conference last week on March the 11th in order to provide that opportunity for Mrs. Carr to be heard. That conference lasted a little over 3 hours, as you all know. And following that conference, the board spent a considerable amount of time deliberating in this matter. You also individually, I know, took the time to review all the evidence that was tendered by the parties, and you gave this a lot of consideration before being here this evening. So I want to tell you all that I really respect and appreciate all of the time that you have put into this matter and the attention that you have devoted to it. It's very important, and you all, as a board, have treated it as such. You've been very thorough and very thoughtful in your review of the matter. And so tonight now we are here, and there's a decision that needs to be made in this matter with respect to the administrative recommendation to cancel the contract. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board president to be able to call for a vote on the pending recommendation to cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cooper. Okay, the school administration has recommended that the board approve their recommendation to cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr. Do I have a motion?
I move the board cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that the board cancel the teaching contract of Dana Carr. Is there any discussion among the board?
I just want to say that I reiterate what Mrs. Cooper said, that we put in a lot of time and looked at everything that came before us.
Anyone else? Hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. I will now turn this matter back over to the board council to advise the board on our next steps in this matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The board is also required as part of this process to adopt what we call findings of fact and conclusions of law with respect to your decision in this matter. As the members of the board know, I sat in on the board's deliberations in this matter to be able to hear the discussion that occurred and to be able to witness the review of the evidence that you all engaged in. Based upon my observations during the board's deliberations, I prepared for the board's consideration draft findings of fact and conclusions of law, which I have shared with all of the board leading up to this meeting this evening. The board now needs to vote with respect to those draft findings of fact and conclusions of law that I've prepared and that are before the board this evening. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. President, to call for a vote.
Very good. All right, is there a motion from the board with respect to the findings of fact and conclusions of law that have been prepared by board counsel in this matter?
I move that the board approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law that have been prepared by the board council.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion in the matter? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It has been moved and seconded, and the motion passes. I'll now turn this agenda back over to the board council for our wrap-up.
All right. I promise just one more thing, that we need to wrap this up and then I'll be done talking. Indiana law does require that your decision here this evening be evidenced by a signed statement that's in the minutes of the board. I'm sure all the board noticed that your signature lines were included in the findings that you have now approved here this evening. So I would ask that the superintendent secretary please note in the minutes of the board's decision here this evening, as well as attaching a copy of the findings of fact and conclusions of law that you all can sign after the meeting ends this evening. And therefore, we will fulfill that aspect then of the statute. As a point of information, just more for the general public's knowledge, were findings of fact and conclusions of law that contain reasons for your decision or public record as a matter of law. So in the event that you would receive a public records request for a copy of that document, that would be something then that we would provide to the requester. So I want to thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board for your attention in this matter. I think this concludes this particular item on the agenda, and feel free to move forward with your next item. Thank you.
On behalf of the board, I think it's safe to say we really appreciate all your counsel and your leadership with this matter. It's not something we like to see done, but I mean, we've not had to go through that, so we need all the guidance we can get with this.
Well, you all
Thank you
were
for that.
very thoughtful. Very thoughtful.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to an approval request for the Dell Chromebooks proposal.
Yep, so in your board packet was a proposal to purchase Dell Chromebooks for the high school to the tune of $180,190. Just like with reading curriculum through for the middle school, this comes out of the education fund now. Now that the curriculum materials fund is no longer. It's clamshell device. It's very similar to the device that we use in middle school. Technology prices have just absolutely skyrocketed, and unfortunately, we weren't able to continue with laptops because it was over $400,000. So we feel like this device will fit our needs with what we're doing.
Any questions? All right. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. An approval request for a scoreboard proposal.
Yeah, so we've been having we've been kind of nursing the scoreboard out at the turf field and track, nursing along for quite some time, and so I've worked with Mr. Greenlee and tried to identify a couple of different vendors to get a quote from for an updated scoreboard, play clocks, and in your packet is a proposal for that. It's just by the time you add installation costs, the total cost is going to be right around $50,000, give or take. So that's why I'm bringing it to the board for approval. Scoreboard itself, $43,672.15. Installation, $6,825. When we were originally looking, our first installation quote was like $46,000. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So this gentleman who installed the scoreboard out at the youth field did a good job. He's going to, if approved, be the installer for that. Picture of it's kind of in your packet. They'll keep the name, Phil Harbison, Coach Harbison Stadium, and just kind of provide an updated look and hopefully last for quite some time. Robert Harbison. I said Phil, apologize for that, but it'd be my recommendation that the board approve this request as presented. We'd like to finalize our order so that way it can hit production and be installed ahead of next season.
Are you got kind of a time frame on just before next season?
Yeah, just before next season because we want to make sure that the purple color is right. So it's actually a custom purple paint job to kind of match our purple. So yeah, the goal is if we place the order this week, we think it'll be in ahead of season. So there's quite a few months here before that. So that's the goal anyways, to get that done. And to help kind of offset that cost, I helped work to kind of sell 2 additional sponsorships to that scoreboard for 5 years. So over 5 years, athletics will actually recoup some of that money back. So athletics is actually going to make a contribution towards this purchase as well, probably to the tune of $15,000 to $20,000 to help with the purchase. So we have a joint purchase.
Very good.
And looks like they take care of taking everything.
Yeah,
away,
they take.
too, so that's
Yeah, we don't get left.
Storage.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, believe it or not, that old one at middle school, we had somebody that wanted that for recycling. We let them have it.
Any other questions?
It covers all sports that are on that field too, right?
Yeah.
And then the timing, the 25-second clocks will have the time on top of them too.
Yeah, it'll have the game clock. And you can actually customize the team name on the board too. It won't stay home.
Like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Wireless controllers. That's the other thing with some of these devices. It's not just the board itself. It's the actual physical box. That we would have to nurse those things along.
Anyone else? All right. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will carry. I have approval request for an overnight GHS diving state championship, February 27th through the 28th of 2026.
Yeah, so this is a request that I shared with you for approval via email, just because there wasn't another board meeting time for that overnight trip.
Mhm.
And in this case, it's just a really awesome opportunity for Cyrus to represent Greencastle High School at the state diving. And it finished in 37th place, I believe. 37th place. And that's just a significant accomplishment. We haven't had somebody advance like that. How was it, like 20 or so years, I think, since
Yeah.
we've had. So, pretty significant accomplishments. And we're happy for Cyrus, but
Yeah.
I would like to ask that the board approve this request as presented.
What an outstanding experience for Cyrus, I'm sure. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That will carry. All right, I have approval request for an overnight GHS choir to New York, June 10th through the 14th of 2027.
Yeah, so we really send our kids just about everywhere, internationally, across the United States. But we have a lot of people working really hard for our kids to help provide these opportunities. So this trip certainly wouldn't be possible without those responsible for kind of spearheading it. But yeah, they submitted an overnight trip. Obviously, it's out of state and it's during the summertime, but that's why it requires board approval. They're going to get to see concert halls, attend a Broadway show. So it's just a really fine experience for the kids. So they've submitted all necessary paperwork. Obviously, they'll have proper chaperones, everyone in place. And so it would be my recommendation that the board approve this item as presented.
And this is with the Fall Choir Director as well?
Yes,
That's awesome.
it is.
And I understand that we're doing it so early just to give them time to
Fundraising,
get a little
yeah,
fundraising
just
going
like
on.
the international trip. Sometimes you have to fundraise, sometimes you just need to put some money away here and there, month to month, and it definitely helps because everything's expensive.
That it is. That it is. All right, any questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
Motion.
Have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry.
I would like to see how many kids we get, though. I see that it's up. They're hoping to get 30, but would love to see as many possible go.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I just judging by the trips that the kids get ready to leave here Thursday into Friday, I don't think it'll be a problem. I feel like
Good.
We'll hit those numbers.
Excellent. Excellent. We went to what, Chicago? Band trip, I think it was?
We went to Chicago,
Yeah.
Florida. We've been a lot of places.
We went to Indianapolis.
That's a good experience for those young folks, that's for sure.
Circle set.
All right, I have an approval request for permission to pay late arriving invoices for March of 2026.
Yeah, this is kind of similar to last month's request, and given just the timing of the early board meeting, I just want to be able to maintain continuity and pay those bills.
Any questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. All right, I have approval request for some projects coming up here. So looks like I got to read in a little script here real fast. Next item on the agenda relate to financing of our construction project. Could I have a motion? Do you have something you're going to present to us? Or?
No, I don't have anything to present to you, but if you'd like to just share a little bit about what they are. So the first one is the resolution determining the need for project lease financing. And so this is required by Indiana Code 20-47-3. The school board must determine that there's a need for a project. And the need for the project, we're talking about McNally roof, Parker roof, Deer Meadow. So continuing the conversation again. No final decisions have been made or set in stone. We'll continue those conversations before selling bonds. So as part of that, we're kind of setting the maximum threshold. We can always come in below that, or we can go up to that. So this is the first resolution in order to kind of move forward with that process. Continue it.
All right. Can I have a motion to adopt the resolution determining the need for a project resolution?
Motion.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do you have any discussion on the matter?
No, but I think there's a definite need, especially starting with Deer Meadow, to get that road taken care of.
Yep.
So
We got to get on that stuff for sure. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry.
And then the next one is a resolution approving form of third amendment to lease. So, as is the case with lease financing are used with school corporations in order to borrow for renovation construction. Doesn't count against the school corporation's constitutional debt. We are currently, the building is currently subject to lease finance. Therefore, we're amending that lease to extend the term and increase the lease rental due from the school corporation. In exchange, the extension and increased lease rental, the building corporation will use the bond proceeds to make the needed improvements to our buildings. The increased lease rental will be sufficient to pay the principal and interest due to the bondholders.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the resolution approving form of third amendment to lease?
motion.
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry.
And then the final resolution is resolution reapproving building corporation. In order for the building corporation, a not-for-profit Indiana corporation, to issue tax-exempt bonds, the IRS requires that the school board reapprove the building corporation and authorize it to issue tax-exempt bonds on behalf of the school corporation.
Any questions? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt the resolution reapproving the building corporation?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Givney. Get myself reorganized here real fast. Okay. So you have approval request for some special services.
Yeah, and I apologize because the last one we had it grouped, but we voted on them each individually as separate items. But if okay with the board, we could seek approval of these items as a group. They're all related to special services, so it's 2026 summer speech for students who qualify for that. 2026-27 speech and language pathologist contract. 2026-2027 blind and low vision contract, and 2026-2027 deaf and hard of hearing connections LLC contract. So these are specialists. We contract with them. One, either they're difficult to fill positions, you can hire them, or you don't need a full-time person, but you need hours to service students. So Mrs. Sullivan has gathered all of those contracts, the costs. I've reviewed them, and it would be my recommendation that the board approve all of those items as presented.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the 4 separate special services in a group approval?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on the matter? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion will carry. All right, and it looks like finally I have an approval request for a donation. Looks like Jack Dalton to the Greencastle High School Champions Together for $1,500. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain?
Abstain.
All right. Lost my train of thought. Where am I at? All right. That motion will carry. What happens when your phone buzzes right in the middle of your conversation? With the snow going and my phone buzzes, I lose that concentration because I just assume something's going wrong somewhere. Okay. Do we have any other business?
I have no other business.
Okay. Does the board have any other business to discuss?
Well, I would just like to bring up that the high school has a Model UN club, and they spoke at Rotary, I believe, and I would love to hear a presentation from them if we could arrange that.
Sure.
It's a new thing, and I
Yep.
think it's just wonderful. And then the Greencastle Middle School bands went to contest this past weekend and came home with straight golds again.
Yes, they did.
So, and Choir Festival was a fantastic hit. So,
Excellent.
just some wonderful things that happened just this past week.
It's a busy time. Busy time.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else? I do have to add on to Mr. Gibney's statement earlier. Had a chance to work security at the ball games over the weekend. It's always a pleasure, and it does my heart good to see the parking lots full of people visiting our campus for whatever they're doing, whatever they're here to see. And then being inside the buildings and hearing the discussion of visitors here talking about the state of our buildings, the state of our sport facilities, our students, our staff, how they react to folks. It's always a pleasure to see that, and hope we can continue that. And it was just a joy to see McAnally full, almost all the way to the roof. It was loud. It was organized chaos. I don't know how those folks do it. Nobody got out of control. Everybody was well within their means, but it was just phenomenal to see that, and I'd really like to see that with our local basketball games. Would be phenomenal, but we got some work to do to get there. But it's always a treat to see our campus full of folks visiting and using our facilities. So.
You hit the nail on the head when you said that Roncalli, Columbus North could not believe we're a 2A school.
Man,
the facilities that we have.
They are there. There was a lot of good statements. They really appreciated the auxiliary gyms to be able to go practice and warm up. Whereas used to they just had to wait, and the locker room facilities we were able to provide. It's just a lot of good things. So.
Turn on the news on Sunday morning, have coffee, and see beautiful McAnally Center because I see highlights from Roncalli and I'm not sure Northview, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just the only better thing that would be better is if we were playing.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Absolutely.
We're blessed.
Okay. Anything else from any of the board? Okay. Hearing nothing else, we'll proceed to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that matter? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed?
I
All right.
threw my wedding ring off when I
Oh
saw
no! Motion carried.